Don't forget to like this video, comment where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button. Daddy's not coming back, my 7-year-old son Lucas told me after his weekend visit, his small voice trembling with confusion. He said you don't want me anymore and he's my real family now. He said I don't have to come back here if I don't want to. What I didn't know was that this was just the beginning of my ex-husband's calculated plan to steal my child from me forever. For 3 years after our divorce, I thought we were successfully co-parenting. Sure, Mark and I had our differences, but Lucas seemed to be adjusting well to our every other weekend custody arrangement. He'd come home from his father's house full of stories about their adventures, excited to tell me about the new video games they'd played or the restaurants they'd visited. I was grateful that Mark was being such an involved father. After all, some divorced dads disappear entirely from their children's lives. Mark was present, consistent, and seemed to genuinely enjoy his time with Lucas. I should have seen the warning signs earlier. It started with small comments that Lucas would make after his visits. Daddy says you work too much. Daddy says his apartment is bigger than our house. Daddy says maybe I could stay with him during the week sometimes, just to try it. At first, I dismissed these as normal childhood observations. Lucas was 7 years old, trying to make sense of having 2 different homes, 2 different sets of rules, 2 different parents who weren't together anymore. But then the comments became more pointed. Daddy says you get really angry sometimes. Daddy says maybe you're stressed because taking care of me is hard. Daddy says he could take better care of me because he has more money. I started to feel defensive, then worried. Why was Mark discussing my parenting with Lucas? Why was he comparing our financial situations to a 7-year-old? When I brought it up during one of our custody exchanges, Mark brushed off my concerns. Kids say things, Sarah. You know how Lucas is. He repeats everything he hears. I'm not trying to turn him against you. But Mark, he's coming home feeling like he has to choose between us. That's not healthy for him. Maybe he's just expressing his own feelings about the situation. Have you considered that Lucas might actually prefer spending time with me? The suggestion stung, even though I tried not to let it show. Mark, this isn't a competition. We're supposed to be co-parenting. And we are. But if Lucas is happier at my place, maybe we should think about adjusting the custody arrangement. That was the first time Mark directly suggested changing our agreement. I said no, and he dropped the subject, but something had shifted in our dynamic. Over the next few months, Lucas's behavior started changing in subtle ways. He became more withdrawn after visits with his father. He'd spend the first day back with me seeming distant, almost like he was evaluating me. When I'd ask about his weekend, he'd give short answers and change the subject. How was your time with Daddy? Fine. What did you guys do? Stuff. Did you have fun? I guess. But then he'd make these random, devastating comments that seemed to come out of nowhere. Mom, do you wish you didn't have to take care of me? Mom, would you be happier if I lived with Daddy? Mom, Daddy says sometimes parents get tired of their kids. Are you tired of me? Each question broke my heart a little more. Where was this coming from? I'd never given Lucas any indication that I was anything other than completely devoted to him. Lucas, sweetheart, I love taking care of you. You're the most important thing in my life. I would never get tired of you. But Daddy says. What does Daddy say? Nothing. Never mind. I started keeping a journal of these conversations, something instinctive telling me to document what was happening, even though I couldn't quite name what it was yet. The breakthrough came during Lucas's 8th birthday party. I'd planned a celebration at our local park with his friends from school, his favorite pizza, and a superhero-themed cake. Mark was supposed to drop Lucas off at noon for the 1 p.m. party. 12:45, my phone rang. Sarah, we're running a little late. Lucas had a meltdown this morning about the party. A meltdown? What kind of meltdown? He said he didn't want to go. He was crying, saying he just wanted to stay with me today. I finally calmed him down, but it took a while. I was confused. Lucas had been excited about his party all week. We'd made the guest list together, picked out decorations, planned games. Is he okay? Can I talk to him? He's in the bathroom right now. Look, I think he's just overwhelmed. Maybe we should skip the party today. Skip his birthday party. Mark, his friends are already here. I've spent days planning this. I know, and I'm sorry. But Lucas seems really stressed about it. Maybe it's better if he just has a quiet day with me. Something in Mark's tone set off alarm bells. This didn't sound like Lucas at all. Mark, put him on the phone. I want to hear from him directly that he doesn't want to come to his own birthday party. There was a long pause. He's really upset, Sarah. I don't think talking to you right now will help. Put my son on the phone. Now. Another pause. Then I heard Mark talking to someone in the background, though I couldn't make out the words. Finally, Lucas's voice came on the line, small and shaky. Hi, Mom. Hi, baby. Daddy says you don't want to come to your party. Is that true? Silence. Lucas. Sweetheart, all your friends are here. We have your favorite pizza and the superhero cake you picked out. Don't you want to celebrate your birthday? I don't know. You don't know. Lucas, what's wrong? Are you feeling sick? No, I'm not sick. Then what is it? Talk to me, sweetheart. I heard Mark's voice in the background. Tell her you want to stay here. My blood ran cold. Lucas, did Daddy tell you to say you don't want to come to the party? No. I mean, tell her you want to stay here. Mark's voice came again, clearer this time. Mark! I shouted into the phone. Stop coaching him. Lucas, ignore Daddy for a minute and tell me the truth. Do you want to come to your birthday party? Yes, Lucas whispered. But Daddy says. The line went dead. I stood in the park, surrounded by 8-year-olds and party decorations, staring at my phone in disbelief. Mark was actively manipulating our son, coaching him to reject me, to reject his own birthday celebration. Called back immediately. It went straight to voicemail. I had to make a choice. Cancel the party and disappoint Lucas's friends, or go ahead without him and try to explain to a group of 8-year-olds why the birthday boy wasn't coming to his own party. I chose to continue with the celebration, telling the kids that Lucas was feeling sick but didn't want to disappoint them. We played the games, ate the cake, and I took pictures of the empty space where my son should have been. That night I called my lawyer. Mark is engaging in what sounds like parental alienation, attorney Jennifer Walsh explained. It's a form of psychological abuse where one parent systematically undermines the child's relationship with the other parent. Is it illegal? It's complicated. Courts recognize it as harmful, but proving it can be challenging. We'd need documentation, evidence of patterns, possibly expert testimony. I've been keeping a journal of Lucas's comments after visits. That's good. Keep doing that. Also, consider requesting that your custody exchanges be done in public places with witnesses present. And document every incident like today's birthday party situation. Over the next 2 months, the situation escalated rapidly. Lucas started coming home from visits with his father filled with anxiety and confusion. He'd ask me questions that clearly weren't coming from his own 7-year-old mind. Mom, why did you and Daddy get divorced? Was it because you didn't love him anymore? Mom, Daddy says you wanted the divorce because you care more about your job than our family. Is that true? Mom, if you really loved me, wouldn't you want me to be happy? And I'm happier at Daddy's house. The last comment nearly destroyed me. I'd spent 8 years pouring every ounce of love I had into this child, and now he was parroting his father's words, questioning my love for him. I started recording our conversations after his visits, with Jennifer's advice that it might be necessary evidence later. Lucas, where do you get these ideas about Mommy not loving you? I don't know. Daddy says maybe you'd be happier if you didn't have to worry about taking care of me all the time. Did Daddy say that, or did you think of it yourself? Daddy says it. But he says it's okay because he wants to take care of me instead. And how does that make you feel? Confused. Because I love you, Mommy, but Daddy says. Daddy says a lot of things. The breakthrough in documentation came when Lucas accidentally called me during one of his visits with Mark. He'd been trying to call his friend Tommy and dialed my number by mistake, but didn't realize the call had connected. For 20 minutes, I listened to Mark systematically tearing down my character to our 8-year-old son. See, Lucas, this is what I'm talking about. Your mom is so busy with work that she forgot to pack your favorite snacks. Does that seem like someone who's really thinking about what you need? But she packed other snacks. Sure, but not your favorites. If you lived with me all the time, I'd always remember your favorites because I'd make you my priority. Would I still see Mom? Of course you'd see her. But just for visits like how you visit me now. Wouldn't it be nice to have your main home be the place where you feel most comfortable? I guess. And Lucas, you know how your mom gets stressed sometimes. How she raises her voice when she's frustrated. Sometimes. That's because taking care of a kid all the time is really hard work. Your mom loves you, but she might be happier if she could just enjoy being with you sometimes instead of worrying about all the hard parts of being a parent. What are the hard parts? Oh, making sure you eat right and do your homework and get to bed on time and brush your teeth and clean your room. All those things that make moms tired and grumpy. But if you lived with me, your mom could just be fun when you visit her. She wouldn't have to be the mean parent anymore. I was listening to my ex-husband rewrite our entire family narrative, painting my love and care as burdens, my normal parenting as unreasonable stress, my role as Lucas's mother as something that was making everyone unhappy. But the most insidious part was how he was positioning himself as Lucas's savior, the parent who would rescue him from the burden of living with me while simultaneously reassuring him that I'd still be in his life for visits. I saved the recording and sent it to Jennifer immediately. This is gold, she said. This is exactly the kind of evidence we need to show the court what's happening. He's literally rewriting Lucas's understanding of your relationship and manipulating him into believing that rejecting you is actually in everyone's best interest. We filed for an emergency custody modification the next day. But Mark was smarter than I'd given him credit for. Somehow, he found out about the court filing before the hearing. When I arrived to pick up Lucas after his next scheduled visit, Mark wasn't at the agreed-upon meeting place. I waited for 2 hours before calling him. Mark, where are you? You were supposed to have Lucas back at 6 p.m. Yeah, about that. Lucas doesn't want to come back tonight. What do you mean he doesn't want to come back? He's been crying all day about having to leave. He begged me to let him stay. I can't force him to go somewhere he doesn't want to be. Mark, this is not Lucas's decision. He's 8 years old. You need to bring him back according to our custody agreement. Sarah, I'm not going to traumatize our son by forcing him to leave when he's this upset. Let me talk to him. He doesn't want to talk to you right now. He's too upset. Mark, if you don't bring Lucas back tonight, I'm calling the police. Go ahead. But when they get here, they're going to see a little boy who doesn't want to leave his father. They're going to see that forcing him to come with you would be harmful to his emotional well-being. The line went dead. I did call the police. When they arrived at Mark's apartment, they found Lucas clinging to his father, crying and saying he didn't want to leave. To the officers, it looked like a custody dispute where forcing the child to leave would indeed be traumatic. Ma'am, we can't physically remove a child from a parent when the child is this distressed, especially when there's an ongoing custody dispute, the officer explained. You'll need to resolve this through the courts. Mark kept Lucas for 6 days beyond our agreement. When he finally returned him, Lucas was different. More withdrawn, more anxious, more convinced that choosing between his parents was his responsibility. Mom, I'm sorry I didn't come home when I was supposed to, he said that first night back. I was scared. Scared of what, sweetheart? I don't know, Daddy said. Daddy said you might try to keep me away from him if I came back. He said sometimes parents do that when they're really angry. Lucas, I would never keep you away from Daddy. That's not how custody works. But Daddy says you filed papers to try to take me away from him completely. I knelt down to look my son in the eye. Lucas, the papers I filed are to make sure you're safe and that both Daddy and I get to spend time with you. No one is trying to take you away from anyone. But Daddy says, honey, I need you to try something for me. I need you to tell me what you think, not what Daddy says. How do you feel when you're here with me? Lucas thought for a long moment. I feel normal. I feel like me. And how do you feel when you're with Daddy? I feel like I have to pick sides. Like I have to prove I love him more than you or love you more than him. Like someone's always going to be sad no matter what I choose. My heart broke for this little boy who was being forced to navigate adult manipulation and emotional warfare. Lucas, you never have to choose between Daddy and me. You're allowed to love both of us. You're allowed to enjoy time with both of us. Anyone who tells you different is wrong. Even Daddy. Even Daddy. The custody hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. In the meantime, I documented every interaction, every pickup and drop-off, every concerning comment Lucas made. But Mark escalated his campaign. Lucas came home from his next visit with a letter he'd supposedly written himself. In 8-year-old handwriting it said, "Dear Judge, I want to live with my daddy all the time. My mom is nice but she gets mad a lot and I feel safer at my daddy's house. Please let me stay with my daddy." The letter was heartbreaking, not because of what it said, but because I could hear Mark's words in every sentence. The language was too sophisticated, the reasoning too adult, the emotional manipulation too calculated to have come from Lucas's own mind. I showed it to Jennifer, who immediately recognized it as coaching. No 8-year-old writes a letter to a judge with this kind of structure and legal language, she said. This is clearly dictated or heavily influenced by Mark. But would the court see it that way? 3 days before our hearing, Mark pulled his most devastating move yet. I arrived for my scheduled pickup time to find Lucas's school backpack waiting for me. But no Lucas. "Where is he?" asked Mark. "He's staying with me this week. He doesn't want to go back and forth anymore. He wants stability." "Mark, this is my week. You can't just decide to keep him." "I'm not deciding anything. Lucas is deciding. He's old enough to have a voice in where he wants to live. He's 8 years old. He's not old enough to make custody decisions. He's old enough to know where he feels safe and loved. He feels safe and loved with me too. You've been brainwashing him into thinking otherwise. Sarah, I think you need to listen to what your son is telling you. He's been trying to communicate his preferences for months, and you keep dismissing his feelings." I stared at my ex-husband, this man I'd once loved, this man who was supposed to co-parent our child with me, and saw a stranger. Someone willing to use our son's emotions as weapons against me. "Mark, if you don't let me take Lucas tonight, I'm filing for contempt of court. Do what you need to do. But I'm not going to force a crying child to leave when he doesn't want to go." For the second time I left empty-handed. That night, I called Lucas's school to let them know about the custody dispute, and to ensure they wouldn't release him to Mark during my designated time. "Actually, Mrs. Peterson," the principal said, "Mr. Peterson picked up Lucas this afternoon and said he'd be homeschooling him for the rest of the semester." My blood turned to ice. "He what?" "He had withdrawal paperwork. Said you were both in agreement about transitioning to homeschooling." "I never agreed to that. He forged my signature." "Oh my. Well, we'll need you to come in first thing Monday morning to sort this out." But Monday was too late. Mark had removed Lucas from school, from his friends, from his normal routine, from any witnesses to their daily interactions. I called Jennifer in a panic. "He's isolating Lucas," she said. "This is a classic escalation in parental alienation cases. By removing him from school and from regular contact with you, Mark can intensify the manipulation without outside oversight. What can we do?" "We expedite everything. I'm filing for emergency custody tonight. We'll ask for an immediate hearing." The emergency hearing was scheduled for the following Thursday. For 6 days, I had no contact with my son except for one supervised phone call that Mark allowed. during which Lucas sounded robotic and rehearsed. "Hi, Mom. Hi, sweetheart. How are you? I miss you so much. I'm good. I'm happy here. Lucas, you know you can tell me anything, right? If you're feeling confused or scared about anything." Silence. "Sweetheart. Are you there?" "Yes. Daddy says I should tell you that I've decided I want to live here now." "Decided? Lucas, who helped you make this decision?" "I decided by myself." But his voice was flat, emotionless, like he was reading from a script. "Lucas, do you remember what you told me about feeling like you had to pick sides? I don't want to pick sides anymore. I want to stay here. Are you saying that because it's what you really want, or because someone told you it would make things easier?" "I have to go now." The line went dead. At the emergency hearing, Mark's lawyer presented Lucas's letter and argued that the child had clearly expressed his preference to live with his father. They claimed I was trying to force an unwilling child into a custody arrangement that was causing him emotional distress. My lawyer presented the recorded conversation, documentation of Mark's coaching, evidence of the systematic alienation, and testimony from Lucas's teacher about his sudden withdrawal from school. The judge listened to everything, then made a decision that would change our lives forever. While I'm concerned about some of the behaviors described here, I'm most concerned about the welfare of the child. Lucas has expressed a clear preference to remain with his father, and forcing him to return to a situation he perceives as stressful could be harmful to his emotional development. My heart sank. "However," the judge continued, "I'm ordering supervised visitation between Lucas and his mother, and I'm requiring both parents to attend co-parenting counseling. Additionally, I'm appointing a guardian ad litem to represent Lucas's interests and evaluate the family dynamics." Supervised visitation. After 8 years of being Lucas's primary caregiver, I was being treated like a potential threat to my own child. But it was better than losing him completely. The supervised visits were heartbreaking. We met in a sterile room at the Family Services building, with a social worker taking notes on every interaction. Lucas was polite but distant, like he was visiting a friendly stranger rather than his mother. He answered my questions with short responses and didn't initiate any conversation. "How's homeschooling going?" "Good. Do you miss your friends from school?" "Not really." "Do you miss our movie nights?" "I don't remember." He didn't remember our movie nights. Our weekly tradition of making popcorn and watching superhero movies together. Something we'd done since he was 4 years old. "Lucas, we used to watch Captain America every Friday night. You always wanted to stay up past your bedtime to see the ending. I don't really like those movies anymore." It was like talking to a different child. Like Mark had systematically erased pieces of Lucas's personality and replaced them with a version that was easier to control. But during our third supervised visit, something shifted. I'd brought a photo album of pictures from Lucas's childhood. Birthday parties, family vacations, everyday moments that had made up our life together. "Look, here's when you lost your first tooth. Remember how excited you were when the tooth fairy came?" Lucas looked at the photo for a long time. "I was really little. You were 6. You made me check under your pillow 5 times because you thought maybe the tooth fairy forgot about you." A tiny smile flickered across his face. "Did she really forget?" "No, sweetheart. I was just waiting for you to fall asleep so I could put the dollar under your pillow. You were the tooth fairy. I was the tooth fairy." For the first time in weeks, Lucas laughed. A real, genuine laugh that reminded me of the little boy I was fighting for. "What about the Easter Bunny?" "Also me. Santa. Me again." "I knew it," he said, still smiling. Then his face fell. "Daddy says believing in those things is for babies." And there it was. Another piece of Lucas's childhood that Mark had systematically destroyed. Another source of joy and wonder that had been labeled as childish and wrong. There's nothing wrong with believing in magic, Lucas. Even when you're grown up. Really. Some of the best parts of life are the things we choose to believe in, even when we know they might not be real. Like what? Like believing that people can change. Like believing that everything will work out okay. like believing that love is stronger than fear. Lucas stared at me for a long moment. "Mom, I've been scared." It was the first honest thing he'd said to me in weeks. "Scared of what, sweetheart?" "Scared that if I tell you I miss you, Daddy will be sad. Scared that if I tell Daddy I miss you, he'll think I don't love him. Scared that no matter what I do, someone will be angry at me." I wanted to reach across the table and hold my son, but the supervised visitation rules didn't allow physical contact unless the child initiated it. "Lucas, you never have to be scared of loving me. You never have to be scared of missing me. Those feelings are normal and okay." "But Daddy says." "What do you think?" "Not what Daddy says, not what Mommy says." "What does Lucas think?" He was quiet for a long time. I think I want to live in a place where I don't have to be scared all the time." "Where would that be?" "I don't know. Maybe nowhere. Maybe every place is scary now." That night, I cried harder than I had since the day Mark first left with Lucas and didn't bring him back. My 8-year-old son was living in a constant state of fear and anxiety because of the adults who were supposed to protect him. The guardian ad litem, Dr. Rebecca Martinez, interviewed both Mark and me separately, then spent several sessions with Lucas alone. Her report was damning. "Lucas exhibits signs of severe emotional distress consistent with parental alienation syndrome," she wrote. "While he verbally expresses a preference to remain with his father, his nonverbal communication and responses to directed questions suggest this preference has been artificially influenced through systematic coaching and manipulation." She recommended that Lucas be removed from Mark's custody immediately and placed in therapeutic foster care while both parents underwent extensive counseling. "This child has been so thoroughly manipulated that he no longer trusts his own emotions or instincts," Dr. Martinez explained to the court. "Returning him to either parent at this point could be harmful until he's had time to rediscover his authentic feelings without external pressure." The judge agreed. For 3 months, Lucas lived with a foster family trained in handling parental alienation cases. I was allowed 2 supervised visits per week, and Mark was allowed 1. It was the most difficult 3 months of my life, but also the most hopeful. Slowly, away from Mark's constant manipulation, Lucas began to remember who he was. The foster family reported that he asked about me daily, worried that I was angry at him for choosing his father, and expressed confusion about why he'd been so scared to love both of his parents. In therapy, he began to understand that the feelings he'd been having weren't his fault, that adults had put him in an impossible situation, and that loving both parents was not only okay but healthy. "I was scared Daddy would stop loving me if I said I missed you," he told me during one of our visits. "But I missed you every day. I just didn't know I was allowed to say it." "You're always allowed to miss me, sweetheart. Missing someone is just another way of saying you love them." "I do love you, Mom. I never stopped loving you, even when I said I didn't want to live with you." "I know, baby. I never stopped loving you either." After 3 months in foster care and extensive family therapy, the court made its final custody determination. I was awarded primary physical custody, with Mark receiving supervised visitation rights that would be gradually increased as Lucas felt comfortable. Mark was also required to complete a year of individual therapy focused on healthy co-parenting before his supervised visits could become unsupervised. The court finds that Mr. Peterson engaged in systematic parental alienation designed to undermine Lucas's relationship with his mother, the judge said. This behavior is not in the child's best interest and demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of healthy co-parenting. On the day Lucas came home, he walked through our house like he was rediscovering a forgotten country. "This is my room," he said, standing in the doorway. "This is your room," I confirmed. "With my bed and my toys and my books. All waiting for you." He sat on his bed and picked up a stuffed animal he'd left behind months earlier. "I told Daddy I didn't care about this anymore," he said quietly. "But I dreamed about it almost every night." "Why did you tell Daddy you didn't care about it?" "Because he said caring about things at your house meant I didn't really want to live with him. So I tried to stop caring about anything here." "And how did that feel?" "Really sad. Like I was losing pieces of myself. That night we had our first movie night in almost 6 months. We made popcorn, picked Captain America, and Lucas fell asleep halfway through, curled up against me on the couch. For the first time in months, he looked peaceful. It's been 2 years since Lucas came home. He still sees his father, but now the visits are healthy and age-appropriate. Mark completed his required therapy and has learned to support Lucas's relationship with me rather than undermining it. Lucas is in counseling to help him process the emotional manipulation he experienced, and he's slowly learning to trust his own feelings again. Sometimes I still get scared that loving one of you means betraying the other one, he told me recently. But then I remember what Dr. Sarah said about love being unlimited. What did she say? She said love isn't like pizza, where if you give someone a big slice, there's less for everyone else. Love is like a magic pizza that gets bigger every time you share it. Smiled. I like that metaphor. Me too. It makes me feel better about loving both of you. The experience taught me that custody isn't just about legal documents and court orders. It's about protecting a child's right to love and be loved by both parents without fear, manipulation, or coercion. Mark tried to kidnap Lucas emotionally and psychologically, convincing him that choosing love was betrayal, that feeling safe with me meant he was being disloyal to his father. But children are more resilient than their manipulators give them credit for. With the right support, Lucas was able to find his way back to his authentic feelings, to remember that love is not a competition and that family relationships don't have to be zero-sum games. The most important lesson we all learned is that a child's love should never be used as a weapon. Lucas has room in his heart for both of his parents, and protecting that space, protecting his right to love freely and without fear, is the most important job any parent can have. Today, when Lucas comes home from visits with his father, he tells me about their time together without anxiety or defensiveness. He knows he's allowed to enjoy himself with Mark, just like he knows he's allowed to be happy at home with me. Dad and I went to the movies, he'll say. It was fun. What should we do tonight? No choosing sides. No loyalty test. No emotional manipulation. Just a little boy who knows he's safe to love both of his parents, and 2 adults who finally learned that their child's emotional well-being is more important than their own hurt feelings. The custody papers in my filing cabinet represent more than a legal victory. They represent Lucas's right to be a child, to love without fear, and to grow up knowing that the adults in his life will protect his emotional safety above all else. Mark may have tried to kidnap our son's heart and mind, but love, real, unconditional, healthy love, always finds its way home. What would you have done in my place? Drop your thoughts in the comments.